Hi, I'm Susanna Bowling, and this is live from the Hotel Edison, Times Square Chronicles presents. My next guest, it is such an honor to have her here. Her mother was Bella Abzug, and she revolutionized how women saw themselves, how women treated each other, and she changed the humanity of the world. And her daughter, Liz, is with us today, and she is following in her mother's footsteps. I am so honored to have Liz Abzug as my guest today. Liz, you are walking in footsteps that are monumentous. Is it hard to follow that pathway, or do you think it was inbred in you and this was your destiny to be that?
Well, Susanna, I've been around for a while doing various things and, went to law school and been in politics and still am in it, and, feminist, gay movement politics, which I'm a part of. So it's sort of, I think I've crafted my own way at this point. I think it wasn't always easy being the daughter of Bella when I was in high school, college. She first got elected when I was first going into college. So that was a lot of pressure, and also law school. But, we were close. As a professor at Barnard and Columbia for many years, I understand the impact, obviously, she had politically in this country and worldwide. So long-winded answers say, no, it's not hard to follow in her footsteps. I'm proud to be doing so. When you have a public figure, a famous parent, whether it's in the entertainment world, politics, whatever, it's an encumbrance on the family, and as my sister and father. And Bella, my mother, was often, when we went to the theater, we're sitting in the theater district here today. We'd walk in, they were big theater goers, my family, and we'd walk in and people would applaud her coming in to get to our seats. So the answer is sometimes it can be an invasion. You're sharing Bella with many women in the world, and men too, and I did, and we did, but it's not always easy. They were very tight in their marriage, my mother and father. And it wasn't always easy, but and my sister and I, we held together as a family unit. And in terms of me, the expectation was very high in law school in particular. My mother's a lawyer, Columbia Law, practicing lawyer, civil rights, labor. And the professors did have a high expectation, as college as well. And that's not always easy to meet. Justice has always been an important thing to me, social justice. I mean, of course they ingrained it, I'm sure, growing up. But I think over the years, through my own work and assessment and my own self-actualization, both me and my sister, who's older than me, had to learn how to deal with explaining who we are, where we're at, and how we proceed, as notwithstanding that we had a famous mom.
But you've continued in her work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I have.
So talk about your work, what you're doing right now.
Well, right now, actually several years ago.
Because your credits go on and on and on
Oh,
and on.
thank you, Susanna. An important thing to me, besides a lot of other projects I've done the last several years, is I formed as you know, a training institute, leadership and debate for young women, girls and young women, 13 to 21. It was created by myself 20 years ago now.
Wow.
We're on our 20th year. Originally as a living legacy to Bella. She had died, and 4 years later I wanted to bring her legacy forward along with my own work to this current and next generation. So we call it a living legacy to Bella. And I've worked really hard. We train mostly young women, girls, low income, women of color, and first generation immigrants. And now for the last 2 years we've put thrown some boys in there too to make them feminists as well. So
how are they taking to that?
We tell them you're coming in, when you apply, 99% girls program, young
They're
women.
like, yay!
Some are, let me get out of here, I'm not coming in. And the boys that have gone through the program, young ones, 13, 14, some 17, have really learned a lot and enjoyed a lot. And the women, it's not created a problem for the young women and they.
Have you been able to teach young women? Because I find this, yes, women are discriminated against, absolutely. But I think we discriminate against ourselves as well, if not more. And for some reason, the feminist movements never talk about this, and I can't figure out why.
You know, Suzanne, that's a very important and good question, okay? I happen to know and have grown up around the, at the footprint of the leading feminists and then now younger feminists who I am trying to make, carry the torch. The answer to that is a sad one in a way because in any movement, you have to have involve the people and nurture the next generation of leaders. And I used to talk about this with Bella. I mean, I used to say, you guys who are sort of heading the movement, it wasn't just her, Gloria Steinem and others, you have a responsibility to pass on some of this, leadership and power to my generation and now to the next. I am doing. Absolutely. And they knew it, but when people get into very leadership positions, it's hard for them.
They change it to men.
Yeah.
No, I'm not kidding. I normally don't like women in power because they turn into men and they make it worse.
I know.
And I'm like, no, I think I'll rather have the men. At least I know what they're going to do.
Right. That happens in the corporate world a lot, of which I worked in the corporate world for a while. That does happen a lot in the corporate world. It does happen to a certain degree in other sectors, in journalism, that's starting to open. And 50% of women who graduate from law school, there are 50% or more of young women that graduate law school, same with medical school. So as women in the professions and CEOs have increased in the corporate sector, but not enough, as they start to take on the power that they understood they had to work hard to get, those that understood it, then they can share. And I think that in our program, the Bell Abzug Leadership Institute, Bali, that's why we bring in spiritual guides and do improv. One of my trainers who I've hired for several years became involved in improv recently, so we have her working with kids on improv. And these are the things that make you self-esteem and open up, and also you see things that as a spiritualist that you wouldn't see. Older women, they go to retreats and they go to Omega and they go to other things.
It takes one state to give women equal rights, and yet we've stopped fighting for it. Why?
Well, actually, there's a ERA coalition that is very much still involved with fighting for the Federal Equal Rights Amendment, actually. It's called the ERA coalition. I know, because they don't understand. Many women don't understand that we are not equal citizens under the under our U.S. Constitution.
No.
And one of the reasons for that is all the subsequent years of fighting for abortion, for choice, and for people, even younger women who are very activists, my college kids and others, they don't really, it's gone away from the full screen. But there is an ERA coalition that operates out of New York, and it does some national work on trying to get it passed.
Did you see the musical Stuffs?
Yes, I did. Of course I did.
Did you like it? 'Cause
Yes.
I did not.
Okay.
It made me angry because everyone's like, oh, we get the right to vote.
Yeah.
Well, what does it mean if we have the right to vote if we aren't equal?
Correct.
I don't get this.
That's
and
in
then in
them.
the show, when it was downtown, it was much better because
yes.
it gave it more of this is what it needs.
A vibe, yeah.
But in the version on Broadway, it said, oh yeah, it's too hard to do this.
No, I agree with you.
It annoyed the hell out of me.
I agree.
was like, I don't like this show.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And that was an opportunity where people could see in a mass way that we need, and we still haven't passed the Equal Rights Amendment to the United States Constitution.
And women still,
They don't get it.
I know, don't even know
No,
this.
I know that. I know that.
In North Carolina, if you cut your hair and your husband or your father
Yeah.
or your brother doesn't like it, you are jailed.
I believe that. In North Carolina, how are you jailed? The sheriff takes you to jail?
They literally can put you in jail because you went against the right.
I didn't know
In
that.
California, if you die and you're the person that had all the money, your husband can actually go and revoke that rule that you had the money and they can take it.
That is why it is important to keep women's rights at the center and the ERA at the center of discussion. Every year I always speak about that, the Equal Rights Amendment. We still haven't passed it. We have 2 more states to ratify.
I think there's only one state
I
left.
think it was 2, but we can check that.
Because,
Maybe it's 1.
And the state that could ratify it.
Yeah.
At one point ratified.
Yeah. Yeah, years ago.
But the best part, and even this was in subs, and they didn't even bring it out. Who didn't give the women the right to vote? The wife of the president. She was in charge, and she could have done it, and she didn't.
But how? How could she have done it?
Easy.
You know what I mean? Huh?
She had all the bills. She had the power of attorney. She could have easily done it.
Who are we talking about?
It's Roosevelt.
But stuff predates that, you know?
Who was the president in that?
Well, it depends. I mean, the right to vote was passed in 1920 for women.
So who was the
It
president?
would be, let's see.
Wilson?
Huh?
Wilson?
I think, I'm not sure.
Mrs. Wilson.
Okay.
I just don't understand how women don't play Lysistrata and revoke cooking, revoke sleeping, revoke everything until this damn thing is passed.
Well, because the thing is, you have a very, let's face it, 50% of Americans are pretty conservative, and you have to keep up a movement that keeps this front and center. You understand if you're not an equal citizen in the Constitution, you're not equal, period. In the law, under the mores, under culture, that's the case. That's where we get into the question of constituencies, and that's where we get into who's on first. That's where we get into the black women I know often talk about whether it should civil rights and should they work on black rights for blacks and other people of color first before they work on women's rights. And women who are women of color. Yeah, I know. Women of color often consider that dilemma. It's a dilemma for them. I'm going to be honest with you, and they'll express it.
But
many.
don't they realize that if they had equal rights in voting, that they would be able to then get what they want with
Of course. Well, we have equal rights in voting. We just don't have equal rights
No,
under
I
the
mean,
law.
but
Yeah.
if they had equal rights that way,
Yeah. Then,
things could change.
of course, because women make up also more than half the world's population.
Exactly.
And
So
this
why
country.
is this not happening?
Because people self-identify with their own, community, and on their own race,
Maybe it's
their
'cause I
own
don't
culture.
have a community.
Yeah, well, in their own race, their own culture, their own religion, you can't deny that. And so if you have women who, let's say, are black or Latina, or immigrant women, they often realize that the barrier that they want to overcome is based on their race or their color or their
No, but
religion.
it's based more on them being a woman.
I know, but they understand that too, and you can understand that too. But it's that based on being a woman, discrimination based on being a woman of color, based on being an immigrant woman too. And because we've struggled in this country to achieve full equality for, certainly from the civil rights movement, black people, now for immigrants from all over the country, women have a choice. These women who are not white have to think about that. They do. They do.
What haven't I asked you that you would like us to know about?
Well, I don't know. I'm doing a documentary. I've finished it on Bella. It's been PBS and WNET will be showing it within the year. I pulled together all of my mother's famous friends who weren't friends, really friends, like Barbara Streisand and Lily Tomlin, and her colleagues from Congress, Maxine Waters, Hillary Clinton, obviously, and interviewed all of them for this film. It took a while to make it, obviously. Raw footage of that, interview footage, of which I did a lot of the interviews with the filmmaker, plus original material never seen before about Bella and her work and her family will be in this documentary. And it's really a good documentary. It's been shown in different festivals around the country. And I made it.
Responding to it?
Yes, a lot. And I had some problems with the filmmaker, some legal problems with some of the things he did that my family is not happy about. So I have to settle that, but PBS and ET and I have already settled, and they're going to show it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's important to understand the context. You talk about women, why aren't they realizing they should have their equal rights first and everything fall in place. It's very important for women and men to understand the context, the civil rights, how it evolves, and civil rights, the feminist movement, the anti-war movement, the pro-environmental movement, all those things connect. And we, as women, have always been at the headline of been the head of those movements, even though in the civil rights movement it was not clear. Right, exactly. So we have
the
to.
woman in the bus though first?
Yes, well, yes, and several other women who were behind creating the big civil rights march of the '64. There were many leaders, women, black women, who helped create that, along with Barry Rustin, who's a gay black man, to organize those thousands of people. And all I'm saying, you are talking about claiming your power. Really, when it comes down to it, is claiming a woman and women claiming their power. Like I tell my gay sisters and brothers, you know, we reached gay marriage, but we never reached to pass equal rights under the Federal Civil Rights Act. So that if you're gay, could lose a job, you could get fired, lose a job, get kicked out of an apartment, and still be gay married, and there is that discrimination. So you see, it's levels of it, and you have to work to change the structure, and that's what I've done a lot of my life politically in my academic work and with young people, and you're doing in your way through having these podcasts and discussions with people, and you trying to pass on your knowledge, whether it's spiritual or whatever.
Yes.
Well, that's my whole thing, is that I've tried to pass and continue to pass on the techniques and the radicalism and the feminism and the activism, not just words, of our family, my mother and myself. And that, you always need people to do that. You know what I mean? And to make change. Whatever, in positive change, you need to do that. And you can't assume that, unfortunately, just because you're a woman, you agree with the kinds of positions we agree on. So we have to work with those women, too.
Again,
Yeah.
we need to have roundtables.
That's right.
I am so grateful to my guest, Liz Abzug, for sharing her philosophy and talking candidly about issues that we are afraid to talk about. I'd like to thank Magda Katz for always making us look and sound good. I'm Susanna Bowling. Oh, I'd like to thank Ramel Lopez and the Hotel Edison for giving me a safe space to talk about whatever I want and allowing me to do this. I'm Susanna Bowling, and this is live from the Hotel Edison, Times Square Chronicles presents.